There's a moment when satire stops being entertainment, and starts becoming a cultural reckoning. That moment came crashing down in front of a live studio audience when Colin Jost, the deadpan sniper of Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update, turned his sights on Meghan Markle. He didn't just make jokes, he detonated a carefully crafted image years in the making. And by the time he was done, the crowd wasn't just laughing, they were roaring, gasping, applauding, as if the spell had finally broken. And if you've ever felt like the media isn't telling the whole truth about Meghan Markle, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button, because what happened on that SNL stage could be the beginning of the end for one of the most overexposed personal brands of the decade. It all started innocently. Enough. Just another Saturday night, another Weekend Update. But the tone shifted quickly. Colin Jost, known for his stone-faced delivery and razor-sharp timing, opened with a smirk that sent a chill down the spine of every PR firm in Hollywood. Meghan Markle wants privacy, he began. Right after signing another Netflix deal and launching a jam brand, the audience exploded. What followed was not a comedy sketch, it was a takedown. A roast. A cultural intervention dressed up in satire, with each punchline just chipped away at the glimmering shell Meghan had built around herself. And then he dropped the line that would echo across social media and media. Boardrooms alike, she's not the people's princess, she's the PR princess, a wannabe Diana with Wi-Fi. It wasn't just funny, it was savage. And it struck a nerve so deep. The online world erupted. Hashtags like #PRPrincess and #FakeDiana started trending. Memes spread like wildfire, turning Meghan's face into mock reality show posters and satirical covers of The Crown. But the message was crystal clear. People weren't laughing with her anymore. They were laughing at her for a woman who's spent the better part of a decade shaping every piece of public perception with the precision of a political campaign. The loss of narrative control is devastating. Because Jost didn't expose anything new, he simply voiced what so many had quietly suspected. That behind the empowerment speeches, the podcast monologues, the documentaries, and the glossy press tours, there was something hollow, something performative, and just like that, satire became a mirror. The audience wasn't just entertained, they were validated. They weren't just reacting to jokes, they were agreeing with them. But here's where it gets even more dangerous for Meghan. The impact of that one SNL segment didn't stop with a trending hashtag. Behind closed doors, the Hollywood elite, the same people who bankrolled her Netflix deals, her Spotify podcast, her endless string of brand launches, started to shift in their seats. Executives who once praised her fresh voice and cultural relevance were now whispering a different phrase: Meghan fatigue. Because when a mainstream comedy institution like SNL lands punches that hard and the public cheers, you've got a problem no PR team can spin. One entertainment consultant even coined a new term in response to the segment: brand slippage. The idea that Meghan's narrative had become so over-engineered, so hyper-managed, that it no longer resonated as real. And that's the brutal irony. Meghan built her brand on vulnerability, on being real, on speaking her truth. But over time, those truths started sounding more like taglines than revelations. Her every hardship became a headline. Her every trauma was monetized, and Colin Jost called it out with the subtlety of a scalpel and the force of a sledgehammer. "You left the palace because it was toxic," he said. Understandable. But now you're in a Montecito mansion filming 5 angles of your healing process. That's not trauma, that's content. The crowd howled. And in living rooms across America, so did viewers. Not out of cruelty, but out of recognition. Finally, someone had said it out loud, on live TV, and the result wasn't outrage. It was relief. Even Prince Harry didn't escape the burn. In one of the most biting lines of the night, Jost joked that America should trade Harry and Meghan back to the UK as part of a diplomatic deal. "All Britain demands is that we keep these, too," he deadpanned. The crowd burst into laughter. But beneath that laugh was something more sobering, an acknowledgement that even in America, the honeymoon was over. Because if SNL, the most mainstream of mainstream comedy platforms, was openly mocking them, and doing it this well, then the cultural tide had truly turned. But perhaps the cruelest moment came not from what Jost said, but from how he said it. No venom, no anger, just a casual, amused tone. As if this entire saga of royal exit, brand building, and self-narration had finally worn out its welcome. As if the whole world was just tired. And they are. You can feel it in the shifting tone of media coverage. Lifestyle influencers who once posted glowing Instagram stories about Meghan's bold journey have gone silent. Podcasts that once dissected her every word now skip the coverage entirely. One feminist columnist who had written dozens of articles praising her tweeted just 3 words after the SNL segment. He He wasn't wrong. It wasn't a backlash. It was a quiet retreat. And that silence, it's louder than any headline. It's the kind of shift that no press release can fix. No podcast interview can undo, because silence in the media doesn't just signal indifference, it signals disinterest. And in the world of celebrity branding, that's lethal. You see, Meghan Markle's power wasn't just in her story, it was in the people who rallied behind it. The journalists who framed her as a cultural disruptor, the influencers who shared her every quote like scripture, the executives who threw millions at her brand, trusting that her popularity would convert into profit. But when those same voices fall quiet, when they stop defending, stop praising, stop caring, it means something deeper has changed. The truth is, the public doesn't hate Meghan, they're simply over her. And that kind of apathy hits harder than hate, because hate means you still matter. But apathy, that's the death of relevance. And while Meghan and her team scrambled to control the fallout from the SNL roast, the royal family did the one thing that cuts even deeper. They stayed silent. No statements, no counterattacks. Just a quiet, measured distance. But according to one palace source quoted in a British tabloid, there was no sadness behind those castle walls. Only satisfaction. It was only a matter of time before someone said out loud what we've always known, the source reportedly said. Another insider was even more blunt. The joke wrote itself. She's been playing Diana for years. It's a harsh accusation, but it's one that's been simmering for years. Ever since Meghan's public narrative began mirroring the legacy of Princess Diana, legacy defined by heartbreak, by authenticity, by struggle, critics have questioned whether Meghan was drawing inspiration or exploiting sympathy. And in that one brutal SNL segment, the question wasn't just asked. It was answered, because satire doesn't need evidence. It needs resonance. And when a joke lands with millions, when it sparks laughter, not outrage, it reveals a truth deeper than facts. It reveals how people feel, and how people feel about Meghan Markle is changing. Colin Jost didn't destroy Meghan's brand. He exposed the cracks that were already there, the contradictions, the overexposure, the performative vulnerability that had started to feel less like honesty and more like marketing. And for a woman who built her empire on being understood, being seen, being heard, being laughed at is the ultimate reversal. And still, the punches kept coming. Jost didn't let Harry off the hook either. He mocked the couple as a package deal of overexposure, noting that even Britain didn't want them back. It was cruel, it was cold, and it was exactly what the crowd wanted. Because even in a land that gave them their second act, the applause is fading. But the most devastating part of Jost's takedown wasn't even about the couple themselves. It was the comparison. Kate Middleton, Kate smiles, waves, and raises 3 kids, he said. Meghan gives a TED Talk every time she toasts bread. Ouch. The joke was more than a jab. It was a cultural indictment. It framed Kate as the embodiment of quiet strength, grace under pressure, and unspoken dignity, while Meghan was portrayed as the opposite, a woman addicted to her own narrative, endlessly explaining, endlessly filming, endlessly branding. And in that contrast, Meghan lost, because when your whole identity becomes content, when every moment of your life is framed for consumption, people stop seeing you as human. They start seeing you as a product. And when that product no longer delivers something fresh, something meaningful, something real, they move on. Insiders say Meghan was furious after the segment. Humiliated. She reportedly felt personally targeted and blindsided. Her team floated statements behind the scenes, calling the sketch misogynistic and tasteless. But the more they pushed back, the worse it got. Because the backlash wasn't about cruelty. It was about timing, about authenticity, about the fact that the joke worked. And for a brand like Meghan's, built on empowerment and empathy, a joke that resonates that deeply isn't just inconvenient, it's catastrophic. Because it doesn't just change how people talk about you, it changes how they see you. This wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a smear campaign. It was comedy. And that's what makes it so devastating. Because comedy slips past defenses. It goes around the PR spin. It taps directly into public feeling. And what the public is feeling right now is done. Even Meghan's most loyal media supporters, those who once wrote headlines about her bravery, her truth, her battles, went quiet. They didn't flip. They didn't fight. They just disengaged. And that disengagement is the beginning of the end, because the worst thing that can happen to a personal brand isn't hate, it's irrelevance. And that's the direction this story is headed, not up, not dramatic, but sideways, into the cultural void where punchlines go to rest. Meghan Markle isn't a villain, she's not a martyr, she's not a revolutionary. She's becoming something far more tragic in the world of media. She's becoming boring, and in a world that runs on attention, that's the real death knell. Because when people stop arguing about you and start laughing at you, the story isn't yours anymore. You're not leading a movement. You're not driving the narrative. You're a meme, and Colin Jost. He's not a journalist. He's not a royal watcher. He's a comedian. But in just under 10 minutes, he did what no scandal, no tabloid, no insider could do. He rewrote Meghan's public image with a single monologue, and the public agreed. No staged interview, no sponsored content, no Spotify exclusive, just a script, a smirk, and a punchline. And maybe for the first time in her meticulously managed public life, Meghan Markle didn't get the final word. The joke did, and it landed. Asterisk enjoyed the truth behind the headlines. Don't miss the next bombshell hit that subscribe button and join the growing wave of viewers who are done with spin and hungry for the real story.